Chips Ahoy for StocksPoker.com. Today I'm doing a coaching video review with one of my students here. He's playing some low limit stud 8, and I'll be going over his hands and hopefully finding some good spots for improvement here. I like doing these coaching videos because when I make a video recorded of my own play, I'll cut out a lot of hands, and I would hope I'm not making too many mistakes that need to be corrected. So some of the situations where people are in more difficult spots, or maybe some decisions on whether to play a marginal hand on Third Street may not come up as much. So I like these videos because it gives me a chance to review someone's play and also show some different scenarios and situations than you might see in one of my normal videos. So let's go ahead and get started here. And we've got a nice hand here, 3-4-6. He just opened limps. Yeah, it's not terrible here with the ace behind, but this is a pretty strong hand, and you might as well come in raising with this. So there weren't any fives gone, and there are a few cards between you and the ace, so you're not really concerned about raising and then the ace re-raising immediately and facing the field with two bets. So I would go ahead and open raise this. And here we've obviously got a wonderful hand, and I imagine the rest of the hand is going to play itself. Just notice on 6th Street real quick, there's no way he can have a scoop. I mean, it's possible he has a better low than us, although pretty unlikely from his play. But if he were to have a low, we have a pair. So, still automatic bets the whole way. And, the river here is interesting because if he did have a pair of aces and a low card in the hole, he could have us beat for low right here. So I actually like checking on this river. I don't think you're ever going to get him to fold, and we haven't hit the rate cap yet, so that's a consideration. It's normally a small consideration, the rate cap, but the bigger consideration is that we might actually be beat here. So I like a check here on the river because it's going to cost us two bets if we're behind. And we can see that Villain either had aces with a 4 or aces with a jack, and if he had the 4, he had a lot of outs to beat our low on the river and have a scooper here. So I said hopefully this hand will play itself, and it did to a certain extent even on 6th Street. Just bet. But on 4th Street, reconsider your hand and make sure that you have a lock. Just because you have a made low against a high hand doesn't mean that you have a lock. And in this case, we didn't have a lock, and we didn't really have a way to win for high or to win the whole pot here. So, something to keep in mind. And move on to the next hand. Standard fold. We've got 7-2-3. Now, this is fine. I like the defense here. Some people will raise any 4 there, but a lot of people won't go nuts and just raise any low card. So, this is fine. And I don't know how loose Monty Mole is stealing here. Again, you may want to consider folding. Sort of on this play, if you're willing to peel this here, go ahead and re-raise it on 3rd Street, to make the pot big enough to where you are for sure going to want to see 4th Street, because this is, almost as bad as it could have come down. I mean, he could have caught an ace, which would have been even worse for you. But, for you to have bricked and called here, you must think his range is reasonably wide. And if it is, then go ahead and 3-bet it right away. As played, you may lean towards a fold here. But just, remember, be consistent on that. I mean, if you're concerned that his range is going to be reasonably strong there, go ahead and flat call 3rd, and then just go ahead and fold 4th if it comes down like this. If you're not, you need to re-raise, and then, commit yourself to seeing 5th Street. And again, this is about as bad as it could have come down again. I'd probably want to see a fold here. If he had something like a pair of kings, this would be enough to call. But we really don't know where he's at. He could have paired any one of these cards and have us completely crushed. So at this point, I think that's come down bad enough that we need to let it go in the street, because you're going to be calling down and really not sure where you're standing. Back into the low, which is good, and something we needed to do. Yeah, I'm going to assume his most likely hand was 4-6-4, and then he caught running jacks on the end. Um, you know, betting 6 isn't great, but because you may get a free card there, he may check behind fearing a check raise. But ended up working out all right with a split pot. But just keep in mind, play your hands consistently. If you think his range is that weak, go ahead and re-raise it. But the boards were getting pretty dangerous here, so now I would think a fold would be good on a few of those streets previously. No reason to play that here or there. I like the raise. Not super thrilled about a lot of people calling. And again, in a multi-way pot like this, you really should consider a fold here. We do have an overcard to the probable pair of jacks, but he may have been overcalling with diamonds. We're looking at a really scary low board here with the 2-6, and you're just not going to have the odds to continue. A pair of threes here is not a good hand. We're almost, we are behind for high. There's no question. If he has a flush draw, he's going to be an equity favorite here because he's going to have a lot of cards he can pair over us. A three's dead, so that hurts our hand as well. And then, obviously if he has a pair of jacks, we're not in great shape either. Especially with someone's board this strong, you may be considering folding if you had a pair of queens. And you didn't have, maybe you had like a queen and a couple pair cards dead. So, definitely drop the threes here. When a marginal hand like this fails to improve, you really have to let it go on 4th Street. You may be letting a lot of hands go on 4th Street, but it's going to save you a lot of money as the hand goes on. It's a good check behind. And again, too small pair like this ends up being kind of a trap hand. He was willing to bet into you. I think you're going to see him here with 2-pair a lot more. I don't think 2-pair is going to be good. You only have, we have a couple outs to improve, and we could hit a queen for a better 2-pair, which would be jacks up. But I think at this point, we should definitely be throwing it in. And I will assume he had kings in the hole. Maybe he knows otherwise and would know him to peel something really weak like ace king jack. But just a reasonably bad situation. And again, when he's willing to bet here, he shouldn't be on a bluff. You have 3 low on a board. Sure, you didn't raise 6th Street indicating you didn't have a low, but 2 small pair becomes a trap hand, and you're going to get stuck in a lot of situations like this. When he bets, you're just almost never good because, why would one pair be betting there when you could have something that beats him or scoops him really, really easily? You just don't see that a lot, unless you have some sort of prior history. Standard. This may be a hand you could consider stealing with. It'd be nice if the table was fuller and you had more people in, but it was full around you with duplicated queens. But again, there's nothing wrong this here. Again, I think this is going to be a little too aggressive with the ace here. Open raise is completely standard. I like that. It's fine. But, both people have caught well. Looking at 5-7, which is straightening. You're looking at ace 2, which is very strong for low. But also here, having caught the ace, people are going to realize it's much less likely that you have aces. Especially given this is high-low and no one thinks you actually have aces anyway, since there's so many hands you can raise with an ace. So, here you don't even have aces, and one pair of aces may not be a great bet. I would just certainly check fold this and let it go. You're gonna get yourself into a lot of trouble. And good fold there, having gotten there. Rolled tens. Certainly want to raise this up. A lot of people like to slow play rolled hands because they don't want to lose customers. But here, a lot of your customers are going to be people with a low draw, and they can very easily take half the pot away from you. It's not like stud high where you want someone with like sixes to come in, or even like a 10 wouldn't make a jack fold, but you'd love to have jacks in there because they just don't have that much equity in the pot. Here, low hands are good, and you'd like to make a big pot and make people pay, especially with all the limpers in. Here, the 8-3 should be raising. Um, you know, so you can bet this. If you check, the 8-3 probably would bet. So, then everyone might call, and then you can raise again. So here, the 8-3 should raise, but you don't necessarily want to clear the field at this point. But you do want to put the most money into the pot. So you may just check this and have him bet. If it's an aggressive player and he'll raise, that's an option too. But you'd really like to get a bunch of bets out of everyone here. So I guess I would slightly prefer a check raise here, just because you can face the entire field. You have them call one bet once and then raise and have them call it again. And maybe at that point the 8-3 would 3-bet you. So a lot of good things can happen with a check raise here. It's kind of a disaster if he checks behind, but I can't imagine the only low board checking behind here. So sometimes people just aren't aggressive enough to raise, especially at the lower levels. Now you just have to hope he doesn't have a made low. And Gary ends up with one. So, still a decent amount of money in the pot. But, unfortunate. Got another good ace hand. Fair enough. Okay, do we have a 7 dead? With an 8 dead, yeah, this is fine. I generally don't like playing 7s against an 8, but with an 8 dead and he just limps, I think we can go ahead and overlimp here and see how things develop. Now here at this point, his most likely hand is 3 to a low and a pair of 8s. Your hand here is 3 to a low and a pair of 7s. With a pot this small, this isn't a great spot for you to be in. But I think this is a little better than it might ordinarily be, because you're going to be in position for the whole time. We're reasonably sure that he doesn't have trip 8s, and the pot's small, but we would have about 40% equity against someone who'd play a reasonable range of 8 lows, some pairs in the hole. So, it's a really marginal spot. I think we can see one more card here and see how things develop. And then 2 queen coming along is nice for you. Now at this point, you know, both, well, actually everyone bricks. And we're kind of running out of time here. You're down to about a third equity here. Getting a little, about 3.5 to 1. We're not going to call down and make too many mistakes, but you know, I guess we can peel this just based on the fact that he can't have low anymore. He could hit a runner low. I mean, again, this is marginal, but we could make some mistakes if he has a pocket pair. Although I don't think that's quite as likely, and he's going to have a 3-card low, a great deal of the time here. And this is close. I mean, there's a little bit of extra money in the pot from the 2 queen calling along. It's just so marginal. And here we can pretty much put him squarely on just 8-8. So this is nice. We get a free card here. And just checks it down. See, now notice that open 8s and 5s was scared to bet here. If we had something like 7s and 3s and he comes out betting, you're really not going to see people betting just 8s there. So you've got to assume he's paired his card on the river, and had we made that here, we could fold. So here, I guess it's a place. We had a reasonably weak hand, but thinking through the implied odds in the situation, we had position. It was a terrible situation, but it seemed a terribly marginal situation. But the implied odds made it, a little better, and nothing doing on the river. But this situation in study, you can afford to make some marginal call downs like these sometimes if you do have position, if you do have implied odds. If we had something like a pair of kings here, against open 8s, we'd have position, but a lot of times with kings, you're not going to have position, you're not going to have good implied odds, and in some of those marginal situations, you need to lean toward a fold. So it's something important to consider when you're in reasonably difficult decisions like these. Here, raising it up, which is good. Like the buried pair. And again, we're sort of crushed here. I'd go ahead and fold this versus the 3-ace and a better queen in here. We have decent implied odds if we were to spike an 8, but the 3-ace is going to be so good here, and we're sort of playing catch up for half the pot here against the queen, and that's not a good situation to be in. Seems strange that someone would be calling down just with spades. But not raising it here, you could be pretty sure that he doesn't even have a draw. Because a lot of people, may semi-bluff a draw. I mean, obviously he has to have maybe a 7 low draw and then picked up a flush draw. But if people play really passively with those spades, you can pretty much put him on not having a hand, because it'd be great if he could raise and he could get the queen to fold, and then ace-9 high is probably winning. And you can be aggressive and get half the pot. And we've got 2 pair with a wheel. So, in the sense, even improving, not only would it not have won us half the pot, it wouldn't have won us any of the pot with our 8s. And, we would actually been in 3rd place. Clubs is a strong hand, and, queen 9-10 has a lot of outs against a pair of 8s. Again, I think this peel is maybe a little loose. There's not a ton of money in the pot. I don't like how a king's dead. We sort of have a good draw to a hand, but we don't necessarily want to be putting money into the pot when we have a draw to a low draw. So I think you can go ahead and fold this right here. Again, with the threes gone, you may want to check this behind. Because I don't, the sixes and threes aren't folding, and you do have a few overcards, but they're kind of deadish. Yeah, I don't mind checking this behind and taking a free card here. It may not even be a terrible play. It may set up a bluff on future streets because people might think you're checking behind a wheel, and which probably wouldn't necessarily be a good play, but 5-4 ace. Oh my gosh, 5-4 ace checked? Are you kidding me? I don't understand. So I think this is a great situation where it's almost you're bluffing a slow play. Um, because people expect 5-4 ace to bet every single time here, and why on earth wouldn't you bet? And a good reason for you not to bet is that you don't necessarily have a great hand. But especially if these two cards were a brick, I think you might be able to pick up the pot enough of the time on 6th Street, having bluffed the slow play. And I really don't think anyone's ever going to fold here. Even the 8-4 doesn't fold here. Looking at 5-4 ace. You still have the right to check behind on 6th Street, so the bet's actually not bad because it still allows you to control the hand. But I just really like checking behind there with the threes dead. And then you run into situations like this. I mean, you can't raise, and you're lucky that the 6-3-4 is not raising either. So it's pretty apparent no one has much of a hand. It's a great fold on the river. No one's betting just eights into these two boards twice. No reason to get anyone involved with the hand on the river. It's just one more bet in a big pot, but you're never going to be good there. Good hand in the bring in, but notice how dead it is. A couple fours and sixes gone, and aces gone. So it would be nice if everyone folds to us. I like just calling here. Our hand is very dead. Now that we've improved here, again, I don't know Steve's stealing range here, but raise isn't bad. If he's going to be stealing with a lot of hands, and now that we've got a quality low, it's pretty likely that he hasn't paired his ace since there was one dead here, so he has to have the last one in the deck. You can get a free card here, so I like raising in position. I mean, I doubt you're ever going to be too far behind, and I doubt you're ever really going to get 3-bet. I still think that's much better, so it just sets you up well. And he goes ahead and folds. So that's good. I like that. And I don't think that's inconsistent with the play on the previous hand where I recommended, if you're going to be, loose or aggressive on 4th Street, do it on 3rd Street still. I mean, our hand was bad enough there that, it was a much more marginal defense. With all those cards dead, we're not necessarily in great shape. So, I think that was a lot more speculative than calling with the 7-3-2, even though normally, hand with straight possibilities might be better. The straight possibilities were pretty thin there, so I think that's fine, and I don't think that's inconsistent. Here, I like limping after here. We have an ace, which is nice, an 8, which is not, and there's the aces in the hole though, so there's nothing lost by not raising here, and should be a good check fold here. Perfect. Have a good hand. If the ace is aggressive here, you can re-raise this sometimes. You might, want to lean towards doing it in the bring-in, but a hand like this is going to be very good, and you're going to be in position, and you could let the 2 in, but it's not a huge factor. I don't mind raising this here sometimes if he's raising a lot of aces. Now if he's not, obviously just flat calling is fine. But don't be afraid if you have a quality hand, like 7-4-5, 6-4-5, would be even better. Don't be afraid just because an ace raises, especially if they're very loose. Go ahead and re-raise these. Uh, you know, you're fine to do that, but also it can put them in weird situations where, like, what? I have an ace and I'm getting re-raised. It's going to confuse people, especially at the lower limits. A lot of them may not know how to react, and they may really freeze up, which can allow you to get free cards on later streets, which is going to be nice. You're certainly raising. Yeah, I like betting again here. If he has an 8 low, you're winning. He pretty much he has to have a wheel to have you scooped here. So, this is fine. I don't want to give this up here. And with ace king high and a 6, betting again here is fine. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. He ended up making a straight, so betting here is completely fine. Obviously, you'll want to bet with a straight there if you don't misread your board. Continuing on. Hands like this don't have too much value. It's something you maybe could consider stealing sometimes, but again, you don't necessarily want to steal too widely, and you're going to put yourself in some bad situations. So, maybe this is like a 9 instead of the jack of clubs. You could consider steal raising that sometimes, but don't do it often. Can't play 9s there with some overcards behind you. Here we've got a reasonably dead hand. 6 is behind us. But I don't want to open limp this. Normally hands like this aren't very good, but I think it's worth a steal here. And he does go ahead and raise, which is good. And here once we're called 2 spots, I don't like the hand anymore. When they both brick, I start to like it more. That's a good check on here. It doesn't necessarily give your hand away. Just because you're in first position, you don't need to bet. Like I said, it's pretty marginal. We're not going to have a great time improving, but we're certainly going to get called. So, if everyone kind of having a crappy board, this is fine to check because it's pretty likely that it's going to get checked around. I don't think you really lose in any initiative here by not betting. I think there's a very strong chance you get a free card. Oftentimes, if you're going to call a bet, you may as well bet yourself. It's true in a lot of games. It's certainly true here. But, we still be pretty likely to call a bet, depending on what happens. But I think a lot of the time here we get a free card. So once everyone checks again, once everyone checks around and bricks again, I kind of want to bet the 5s here. If he has 6s, we're in trouble. But I think at this point you may want to see if you can get someone to fold. I think our equity is going to be pretty reasonable here, and I think you can go ahead and take a stab at it once everyone's bricked again. And then, having made 2 pair on the river, no one's saying they have much. I would go ahead and bet this out. Certainly go ahead and bet this out. And it could have been a flush draw, could have been a pair of 6s, and he ended up hitting a pair of 7s either on the river. Yeah, I think a pair of 7s would probably have bet on 6th Street, so I'm inclined to say he had ace 3-5. Although that might be a re-raising hand candidate, so it's tough. I don't know. Maybe we were in 3rd place on 6th Street behind a pair of 6s, and what ended up being a pair of 7s. But that is a possibility. The nice thing about having a hand like 5-5-8 though, is that you will get these free cards. If they did have sixes and sevens, they were scared to bet them on two streets when they should have been charging you. So when you have a bigger up card and a buried pair, your hand strength, obviously is not as good as if you had a pair of eights, but your implied odds are gonna be much better if you had 5-8-5. Not only because you can hit hidden trips, but because you can get some free cards like this. So in these loose passive games where you're likely to get free cards, playing hands like these where you're even more likely to get free cards is going to be a good idea. And here you've got very quality aces. Here with aces, not actually having ace, I think you can bet again with the 10 in the pot. I think 6-5 is a little too scary to consider a check raise. Since no one will believe you have aces, if you had something like 6-2 or 7-2, it would be even better. I would check this, hoping the 6-5 would bet, and the 10-6 would call, and then you could check raise. Because at that point, you do have enough equity, especially with a runner, 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 low draw. That's important. But here, I think betting and hoping he raises and the 10 fold, I think that's going to be your best play. And the 10 actually raises. This is interesting. I would think that the 10 would be improved somehow. It's possible that he thinks you don't have aces. So he's either saying, I'm telling you you're beat, or saying, I don't think you have aces. So, I don't know that I necessarily like a re-raise here. I'd like to see another card and see what happens there. But, it's not terrible to raise because it, may put a lot of pressure on the 6-5 if he's paired his 5 or something. And with the 10 raising again, he's pretty clearly telling you that you're beat. So you sort of have to go into call down mode here again. And having improved again, and with this low, guys, this is really tough. I mean, we're getting almost 14-1. Maybe it's gonna be cut down to 7-1. But having raised with the 6, I don't know. This is tough right here. I think with how passively the 6-5-2 is played, I think you have to call one and hope he doesn't raise. But this is rough. I suppose the pot is so large we can't fold, and it seems unlikely that the 10 is full. So I will, you're just getting jammed in here, so this is unfortunate. I would probably fold now here because, at this point coming back to us, 6-5-2's got to have a low, so it cuts the pot odds in half. So we're only getting about 4.5-1, and if he's willing to re-raise this here, I wouldn't think he has rolled 10s, but I mean it's possible he's filled up that way. And that may be what he have when he's willing to raise again. But when he is willing to raise again, aces up may not be good here. Especially with someone who I guess may end up having a straight. So I would drop it there, and that's a good fold. A lot of people would just get jammed in there. I'm glad that he's folded here because it can get really expensive, and you're not quite sure where you're at. So in situations like this, it's fine. Just call on a huge pot. Hope that he's paired 2s, and then you can reevaluate on the river. But once it starts jamming, you do not want to be in there with just a pair of aces. And interesting hand. I guess we were reasonably live here, but I think this is sort of the bottom end of their ranges because he could do that with any low. But yeah, you just don't want to be forced to guess, whether you're gonna have to put several bets in the pot. Um, and aces in the hole is, I guess, a reasonable hand for him to have there. And again, I don't know if he necessarily realized what he was doing, or if he was trying to bluff another hand of aces out. But it's not a bad play to be a little bit more aggressive in this situation if you think you can get someone else out. So the low hand hadn't been too aggressive. So I mean, I'm assuming he would have the well, he would have had to have had 8 3 6 5, I think, unless he would start with a pair of threes, which wouldn't have been good. So sometimes you can raise a high hand which may be vulnerable, or could even be second best, and really put a lot of pressure on the other guy. So if you know that Raise and Muck's capable of doing this, you might have to grit your teeth and call down a bunch of bets. But I think generally in a vacuum, especially at 2-4, when people are going to be really passive, if they're in there jamming it up, they're going to have a pretty strong hand. Here 3 flush is normally good, but you're not going to want to play that heads up against an ace. How many spades are dead? Just one spade dead. I think you could go ahead and fold this. I think you'd want a little bit better of a situation here. Just peeling here is fine. Now you've hit a great card. Did we get raised here? Check raised. I mean, I don't think he's full. I think he's just check raising aces and tens, hoping you don't actually have a low. I don't think you can do that because I don't think ace 2 is going to raise a lot of times there. If he has something like ace 3-4 and he hits his 2, just because he didn't raise on 4-3 doesn't mean he doesn't have a low draw or possibly a strong hand. So I don't expect aces and tens to know that. This is rough, but yeah, you can't raise here. And he was full, which is very interesting. I wouldn't immediately put someone on a full house there, but I guess once he bets sixth into that hand, it's a possibility. But he could just be reasonably aggressive. I don't know. I wouldn't want to put him on a full house there right away. But people who do have that line can. People who are full on Fifth Street, might often take that check raise line, hoping that the other guy doesn't actually have a low. I don't know. I just didn't see it there. Here, I mean, there's no need to peel with the 3 flush. The 3's hand is probably going to be pretty weak, but you don't really have anything going on here. So, I go ahead and drop this. I mean, you're not going to make a flush that often, and you don't even have a 3 low to back it up with. You don't even have the best high hand. I mean, he has a king here. So, yeah, I mean, there's no reason to be calling this down here. Yeah, I guess on 6-3 once you pick up your opponent in the draw, go ahead, that's fine. But you need to let this go in the later streets. I'm going to be assuming he had 4s, was betting 4s the whole way, and ended up with 10s. But just we don't have enough equity here, and you're really not gonna know where you're at. So and a lot of people won't just be betting stupid crap. You have to assume they have have at least a pair. Again, I don't think trying to draw to one pair in that spot is good. There's no reason to bluff here. Now this is interesting. The 4 actually open completed. I think just flat calling here is fine. A lot of times people might open complete with a pair in the hole or some other random crap. I just go ahead and check this behind. I mean, at this point, I don't think he's checking a pair in the hole. It seems unlikely that he has 4s or would be willing to do that with split 4s. We're not ahead here, and he could have an ace back there. Although, ace jack probably would have bet. There's no reason to bet here. Just go ahead and see the next card. We get check raise, which is kind of a disaster for 4, 8, 6, 10. No reason to bet that. I mean, we're not ahead is the problem. It's not really even like a semi bluff or a thin bet. If we had an ace, maybe that might be fine, but not in this situation. And him having a nice pocket pair and check raising there is his most likely hand at this point. And because of what I put him on, I like this raise, open ended, well, double gut shot, and I don't think he has a strong low. I don't know that I cap it once he comes over the top, but he may have three jacks to do that there. I mean, I don't see him having a hand like 3-2 in the hole because I don't know why he would check raise. Yeah, against something like 3 jacks, so we're about 45% equity against those 3 jacks, and once he's willing to 3-bet it, we might have to question our read a little bit. I mean, I still think it's pretty likely he has trips, but I don't think he shows up with 2-3 here. But I wouldn't cap this because against the hand I'm putting him on is, I guess, jacks in the hole. We're not a favorite at this point, so. And here, this is obviously great. I mean, now it seems much less likely that he does have jacks in the hole. Once he check raises, maybe he has quads. I mean, we're over the rake cap. If he's full or has quads, we're just flipping here. Sometimes people are crazy. I think I put one more bet in here. I mean, I think it's pretty likely we're just chopping here, but there's a chance we're not. And then once he caps it, and then he checks again. I mean, I don't know if he's trying for another check raise. Once he checks it, let's go ahead and bet. Okay, just aces in the hole. That's very aggressive on 5th Street. So if you have a note on that player, and then he would do something like that with just one pair, then you can afford to be a little more aggressive, and maybe he did know that, and that's good. But had he let out one more time on the river, so I mean, let's go back to 6th Street here. I said we might as well put in the 3rd bet. That's fine. And if he would have led again after capping it, I think we just call this. The only hand I guess that would have a scooped is a better low with a flush, and it's pretty unlikely that he has a flush with a better low because we've got. I mean, I guess he could have ace 2-3 clubs, but there's running out of low clubs here. I mean, I don't know. It's possible we're scooped. It's pretty unlikely. I just think we're splitting so many times. If he would have bet into us on a river. Here, I like this open limp. We have a great hand 6-5-7, but there's an ace to the next of it, right next to us. There's a 4 and an 8 out there that are dead. We really don't want to be facing the field with 2 bets cold here. I think we want to go ahead and keep the pot small in the string. this is fine. Affected this, and you know, you can go ahead and fold this here. I mean, our hand's reasonably dead, and he's improved. You know, the check behind, once he checks and he's telling you that he doesn't have aces. So he could have paired his 3. Having gotten to this point, I actually do like a bet. Because, he's not, he checking aces into, like something like 7-6-3, but our board isn't that scary. So, if he's willing to check to a weak board, I want to make him pay. That's good information to subsequently have. Fine here. I don't think you need to try for a check raise here because a lot of hands are betting, or he would bet when check 2 or lows, and that doesn't help you anyway. So, and he might check a pair of aces or 2 small pair behind, and that would be a disaster. Let's go ahead and bet. And well, he just goes ahead some folds. So I think we'll end on this hand. I think the main lesson here is to fold your weak hands on 4th Street. Unless there's some other overriding characteristic where you might actually have some good implied odds or good position, or hopefully a combination of those two, you're just going to want to drop marginal hands on 4th Street. If you have pair and a low, which is a pretty marginal hand anyway, then you go ahead and brick on 4th Street, and it's a multi-way pot. Just go ahead and get out of there. You're going to save yourself a lot of money, because there's a lot of times where, you're not sure where you're at, and it's possible that you're going to get jammed. Now, the caveat to getting jammed is that 2-4, it's a lot less likely you're going to get jammed. So, you would want to play weaker hands that have great possibility. Like if you have like a 3 flush, like maybe you can peel because you might get some free cards, or if you think your position is good, where people will check to you and you can check behind. That's something to be worth considering. Hands like 8-3-3. They're not really going to turn into much, and they're not going to make strong hands even if they do improve. So, you want, if you're peeling on 4th Street loosely, you want to be peeling hands that have strong potential, not weak potential. So if you've got a pair, 1 or 2 bricks, just go ahead and fold those hands. If you brick off, against something like ace 3, just let it go. You won't make a runner full house very often. So I think it's important to let those weak hands go on 4th Street. So I think we'll do one more of these. I'll come back with part 2 for our next video, and we can get some more hand reviews in, and hopefully find some more good spots for improvement. So, again, thanks for joining me today. This is Chips Ahoy for StocksPoker.com.